Hello, folks on YouTube. Northstar here. For those new to my channel, welcome. For those returning to my channel, welcome back. Now, this is just going to be a relatively short video. How much time? I have to get running somewhere. On micromanagement and ship design and species templates. So a few things. It's gonna be probably listed as separate. Well, playlist, or maybe I'll insert into the multiplayer playlist actually. So a different name because some of it is going to be a little more with the species stuff, species template stuff geared and robo-modding geared towards the multiplayer game. Also, that series might be a little while to new content because it's hard to find weekends where I can do stuff with Joe. By the way, Joe, I will send this video to you, so you might be watching. Hello, if you are. Sorry, I was just taking my multivitamin and a long COVID supplement for the day. Shoot, there we go. This is just reminding me about upgrading pre-sapients. I suppose this is relevant, actually, Joe, since you're doing a Genesis Guides build. I suggest it because it's very powerful as an early Civic. You may swap out of it later, but it's great in the beginning with all the extra influence and Unity income. Now, if you want to uplift a species, you get you go to species screen. Empire species will show pre-sapients Empire at least once you have more than one species. So if you get robots or immigrants, I'm not sure if it shows pre-sapients for then if you may have to go to all species. But this button called uplift, once you have the technology up and it triggers. If you click this, fortunately, the only policy you can set is whether pre-sapients are protected or not. By the way, you're locked into protected. It's Genesis Guides. But if you click this button,
situation log has been updated.
Creates a project like so. It times out in a month, so you basically have to run it the same month you queued it. I'm not going to actually do this. Because, as you can see, Striber hasn't yet been fully developed as a colony. By the way, this is a reason why people often choose expansionist stance, is to get that colony development a little bit faster. Although Mercantile is excellent. If you're a Megacore, you can start off with it. That extra 10% trade, external recruitable leaders is very good. Isolations is also good if you're going heavy on Uni. I don't know why you're in such a hurry to get off Mercantile and get to Expansionist, Joe. Especially multiplayer games. Expanding early, not so great because it's more micro, and you only have so much time. Could just let that project expire. However, this does bring something up. You can see it says 3 months to finish. Why is it only 3 months? And it still thinks I'm doing boardroom research. Even though I only have 448 society, well, partly because it draws them stored, and partly because multipliers to the research. Like you can see, there's multipliers here. If I had a physics project, I would get around 600 progress a month, and actually I do have some like this, or this. So this only takes 5 months because even though I only have a base of 250 physics, you see all these things add up. So it's like you're doing a tech special projects. Now ship design. I'm doing for time. Probably like a third to a quarter of the way. Well, third of the way to the time I have available. So it's a decent song. I'll have to be quick. Now, I recommend creating custom templates. I think I recommend something I even suggested the same name I use for mechanical ships that don't do much. I forget what ship design it said. I said I like this one. I think it's fungoid. They're very streamlined designs, the fungoid ship set. But anyways, I like to start early game with just something that's got Sentinel point defense. It used to be when you had to patrol for pirates, you needed to arm the ships. You can actually create a completely unarmed ship, but to arm them to make them effective in anti-piracy patrols, even a single point defense would do. Honestly, I probably should just create one that has, nothing, and just call it garbage class corvette or something. Like so. It's completely an unarmed ship and it can be built. It doesn't even have an FDL drive. Yep, and you can build this and then you can fairly quickly retrofit a design like that into something else. So let's say I wanted to retrofit some of these Freying class. These are the ones that just Sentinel. And you really have to stick within to not make it excessive upgrade time so you can go across them. Like a Katos and Geon class, you want to stay in the same frame, so ones that have picket components to ones that have picket components. This is showing the cost of retrofitting the whole fleet, I believe. So if I want to do this, then it's considered to be an upgrade. 570. No, actually, so that was to upgrade 20 of these. What did I set that to? Bracer, buckler. So 20 of these to 20 of these cost 570 alloys. It's 27 each. So you can do the math. That's around 540, which is more 28, 560. So there's like an extra in that. Yeah, you might pay like 1 or 2 extra alloys versus building outright, but you're saving on ship upkeep this whole time. And it's very quick, and it adds automatically. You can see these are the upgrades. These are the brand new ones. To move them all to the bottom of the queue. Oh no, it didn't. Where did it choose the retrofit? Oh no, I didn't. I was wrong about that. I guess because there's already something going on. I hit the first reserve fleet and clicked upgrade. Now it's added. You can see it's 11 days to retrofit each one of these, which isn't bad at all. To go from this to this. And it seems to be that the more components you have to swap out, the longer the retrofit time. So this is 3, a weapon and 2 utility slots, and it takes 11 days, around 3 each. 3 1/3. I mean 3 2/3. It's not bad. And it's pretty much the same cost. It's just build as the additional cost of building a more expensive ship. But you were saving on upkeep all that time while you had the cheaper ship, still getting the same power projection. So it's not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all. It used to be I would, by the way, do something like this, and this would be an anti-piracy ship. I should get out of the habit of building them even with the point defense, although it does save on retrofit time. It would have taken longer if I didn't have this added. And point defenses are very cheap upkeep. See, you can now see 0.08 energy and 0.008 alloys. Compare that to something like this. It's much cheaper, and even a basic red laser, of course, it's less combat power, but in terms of paying a little extra upkeep to save retrofit time later, the point defenses are the cheapest thing you can do. So there's a strong argument to start with point defenses pre-installed. And probably an even stronger argument to start with them not. Now ship components have different strengths. You'll notice the energy siphons here, which are Example of a few things I can show off all at once. They do double shield damage, so plus 100%. That doesn't mean it does 100% like normal damage. I once got in an argument with a professor who didn't know his ass from his head, who tried to insist if something increased 300%, it meant increased to triple. No, by 300%, or plus 300% written out that way means that it increases to quadruple the original damage. The paradox devs respect the proper mathematical conventions, and plus 100% means double, plus 200% means triple, and plus 300% means quadruple damage. Usually, I don't think there's anything that does more than triple damage in a certain category, but this would mean, for instance, that of the 8 to 12 damage it does a hit, and you kind of see the average that takes into account cooldown, though the raw damage of a hit matters for the alpha strike, the first set of shots fired, which in late game battles can sometimes wipe out whole ships with battleship alpha strikes on corvettes and such. And frigates especially, because they have lower evasion and more likely to be hit. So this does double damage to shields, but only does 1/4 damage to armor. So you wouldn't want to face enemies even with a mix of shield and armor with just these. But they're good against enemies who only have shields. And additionally, this acts as part of a shield. Costs substantially more. But, I'll just actually look at since it's already got these installed. For an additional 4.75 alloy cost, you get 2/3 of a shield, which it costs exactly 4.75. So for the price of the shield, you get 2/3 of a shield, direct shield hit points. You also get, with an energy siphon, restoring 10 shields anytime you attack a ship. That's even a ship that doesn't have any shields currently up, like they've been depleted, or doesn't have any. I'm pretty sure that works still, too. Not sure if it works on space fauna, like void worms, but definitely on mechanical ships that have no shields equipped. Probably everything. So this corvette's probably going to hit more than 3 times. This is actually better than a shield component, than a laser plus a shield component, in terms of the combination of survivability and damage against shields. Obviously, lasers do half damage on the shield. This does double, and you can combine energy siphons and lasers like I've done here. Now, lasers, mass drivers, people get so focused on just their bonus damage shields versus armor, and that's important. But there's other considerations that people forget. One, Kinects have slightly longer range. That's somewhat more important in the large size range late game with alpha strikes. But 2, lasers have an inherently higher base accuracy. No matter their size, it's 90%. That's very important because if you have not enough tracking, so say you use a medium laser against a corvette with 60% evasion, which is the base, first that 30% tracking gets detracted from evasion, then you have a 30% chance to miss, which means with 9% accuracy, which are a 10, you do 2/3 damage with a laser. But a kinetic, which only has 75% accuracy and is then going to lose that same 30%, is only going to get 45 out of 75%. So it is going to lose more than 1/3 of its damage. Lasers also have enhanced damage against hull, and if you do the math against something that's hull only, but you have a chance to miss, the lasers are going to be better. So like if you're fighting crystalline enemies, which you use neither shield nor hull, you want to use, and you have some medium components, you definitely want medium components to all be lasers. This creates a meta when you start mixing bigger and larger ships of using small kinetics, so corvettes with small coil guns, for instance, and medium lasers, so that you still get a mix of armor and shield damage, but the ones that are bigger and have thus more chance to miss evasive targets have higher base accuracy. That might be a little advanced, but basically if you're designing a ship and you've disabled upgrade and can design it yourself, normally it'll do something like this. You may even have filtered by slot size on, which is not relevant here because they don't have any medium or heavy OE components. You probably don't want to just hide obsolete components. People get obsessed with just using the newest stuff, but a lot of times early game, the smaller stuff is cheaper. You can see here both in upkeep and initial cost, and in power, which you can run out of power on. For instance, if I tried to do this, I wouldn't have enough power. So there are power limitations unless you're going to go around upgrading the reactors. And when you start getting better combat computers, and actually that's something without an FTL, so you can hit the power limits much earlier. You take this, you give it even a level 2 FTL, and you're in trouble. Any kind of combat computer, and you're really in trouble with power. This is 14 power shy. And that's with point defense, which is fairly easy in power usage. It's equivalent to a red laser. So obsolete components have a use both for staying under power budget, and because level 1 components, if you have a choice between filling only some slots level 2 or all with level 1, you want to do fill all the slots. In early game, power projection is so important, so cost effective, that you're better having a bunch of under-equipped corvettes with level 1 components or even some empty slots than a smaller number of max upgrade ships, because you'll get more influence gain and you'll have time to upgrade the ships later to carry heavy armament loadouts. And remember, it's not that tough to retrofit or to upgrade a ship. Now, an upgrade versus a retrofit. Retrofit is like if I wanted to change the frame class to buckler, but I could also do something like this, save it, and now any frame class corvettes, this is the most upgraded frame class, so if I have older frame class corvettes, it could go and I could hit upgrade on any one of those fleets, like Reserve Fleet 2 here. I did save that. Oh, cannot save, because Reserve Fleet 1 is upgrading, that's right. If it wasn't, though, I could have. And upgrades take less time than retrofits. So if you're willing to have an entire, your obsolete line of ships, or you want to, or you're done building more of ship, maybe you upgrade and then you create a duplicate line that's got, so you could create, let's say, a frame alt or frame 2, it doesn't matter. This is now a new class. I could produce some of these later if I wanted to say upgrade all my existing ones to carry nuclear missiles. Point defense are kind of all or nothing. You either don't want to put any in your fleet or you want a hull punch so you can just completely block out missiles. It may sound pointless to focus on missiles early, but void worms use missiles. It's one of their main types of defense. Missiles are countered with point defense. Flak does fighters like the space amoebas have, although enough point defense and still deal with fighters, and enough flak can still deal with missiles. Now, some decent early designs. This is actually a good one against a Void Worm Troika. It has just enough shield plus hull points. Oh wait, it's 200. Did I not get the tech yet for plus 100? I must not. Well, there is a tech. This is point plus 10% Corvette hull points. It's only listing 200 here, even though this should be 220. Well. Okay. So, Void Worms have Void Worm Fangs, which do double damage against shield and armor, which means this is like effectively 150 hull points, and this is 200, so that's 350. They do between 288 and 600 damage, so this would have a decent chance at surviving some Void Worm Fang attacks, and sometimes it would just be one-hitted. It also has a component armor. Those do up to 100, so this would be able to... they also have missile attacks, and they can do up to 100 damage. And so this armor, missiles ignore shields, they'll hit the armor. It's better to hit the armor in the hull, because if the hull gets damaged, the ship's fire rate gets reduced. So this be able to take one missile attack that occasionally seeps through if the point defense screen in a fleet was a little thin. Maybe not all my ships had point defense. Some of them were just no point defense designs like this, and I had some of these mixed in. So occasionally a missile got through. The nano composite armor. Armor tends to have much higher upkeep for its cost and hit points, but it tends to have more hit points per component, and it doesn't use power. So that's a consideration early, as well as what's better against what. If you're building, people often look only at the upfront cost of a component, but if you're going to build a fleet that's going to sit around for a long time before fighting, then upkeep becomes a major consideration. And shields, which have half the upkeep of armor, become effectively in the long run only about half as expensive, despite having 3/4 the base survival. As you can see, shields have a huge level of long-term utility, more than people estimate, and that's before considering the regen, which has strategic use if your ships need to be repaired often, and that's before considering that often you want to run engineering, economic, techs, and stuff like Starhold, but physics, more often there are fewer high-value physics techs, so you can get shield upgrades earlier, and so you have level 2 or 3 shields below level 1 armor a lot of the time, so you can start with level 1 deflectors and then upgrade them to level 2, 3, and that takes less time than if you were to crossfit, or even either do a retrofit and upgrade, I'm pretty sure, of something that had, say, 2 armor components to only 1 later. I could be wrong about that, but there's definitely an upkeep cost structure, and maybe I do too many retrofits, and I tend to at least like to keep the components the same. Heck, even between classes, you'll notice the shields are in the same spot. Trying to make sure I don't accidentally add any extra costs if I retrofit some bucklers to bracers at some point. Like, I think I did notice if the energy siphon was in this slot and one in this slot and the other, it would be take longer to retrofit between the two. I might just be misremembering that. Now, I'm almost out of time here. Shoot, went over. Went into over my time budget for this video. Alright, well, this is supposed to be no more than 20 minutes. I'm at 22, so I already overshot. So this is going for the star that's to the multiplayer game. Joe, now it's actually showing the roboticists as the founder species, because I was playing around with different default templates before, and even at one point I started with these. It even calls them the original. Then I set these default, and then I changed my mind. And what did I set? And the aqua farmers are currently the default. Now the reason I played around with default is because if you are setting species right, you can integrate species into the default species only. If I go into one of the versions and saying subspecies integrates to integrate into default. With robot species or biological, once you unlock the proper text, you get a certain amount of pops that can be changed into the default species if auto modding is set for free each month. Doesn't cost any research or anything. I'd originally set these as the default species and tried to retrofit some of these. Because I noticed the game was producing these annoyingly. I haven't figured out exactly, like, had nothing but this, and it was producing nothing but this each month, and I could not figure out why. In fact, I have 695 of these pops. Only 58 months in the game. I have a very high rate of robot assembly, so that's not surprising, the numbers. But I have no idea why, except this, I think, was one of the first subspecies I designed. And it is mass-produced, so, and it is an all-rounder design, which the AI seems to like, to mass-produce lots of all-rounders. Of course, it's not loyalty circuits, and it has decadence, so it's a lot less happy, especially in worker jobs. And because there are work jobs available, including civilian jobs, it was producing a variant that was terrible as workers, to work as workers, because the loss of control over what you manufacture in your robot assemblies with 4.0 has been a huge problem. So these got produced. We were missing with other stuff I didn't notice originally. That these were the only thing being produced. Well, I did notice that, and that they were all going to worker jobs. And so I'm like, yeah. These. So I started trying to retrofit to these for a little bit, but then I learned that recycled is bugged and doesn't actually add job efficiency to roboticist jobs like it should. It's the way it's written implies that it adds efficiency when working as a roboticist. It doesn't add efficiency when producing pops to this template either, so it's just completely useless. Does nothing but get in the way of taking other useful traits. And even when I got some of these pops as specialist, which let's see, you can see, yeah, roboticist 105. None of them are actually working as roboticists, and the game won't even set them as the, well, lubrication terminal workers, which are the roboticist variant. It won't even set them even when I play around it. It puts them in everything but roboticists. So they have no particular advantage, except that I suppose they're decadent, which increases a pop's chance of being authoritarian, which is my happiest faction. So in some ways they're slightly more suitable for specialist jobs, but they don't have the loyalty circuits. They have recycled, which is useless. Quarrelsome, which makes them bad bureaucrats, and high bandwidth. I started off with a custom-made species because the vast majority of my pops are going to start off as this, so they weren't going to get selected for growth for a long time. So this is not going to be that much a problem. It's often good to start off with a custom-made robot and then create mass-produced variants. Bulky, because housing isn't an issue. High early game and high bandwidth, because it doesn't even start to affect most things to 100 empire size. So this is an early game, not necessarily a good late game build. Then I get a bunch of these. They're bad. So, but I noticed they're all workers, so I'm auto-modding them into aqua farmers here. Now, as a roboticist, you can produce waterproof, which is the robot version of aquatic. Pops right off the bat. They've got wet world habitability. And they get extra job efficiency on ocean worlds, which is my home planet. So they will, and they've also got the harvester's trait. So these are farmer jobs optimized for an ocean planet, which is what Koros is. Luxurious because it's just free points. It doesn't affect anything because these pops are probably never going to end up as roboticists. I wouldn't be surprised if this hurts roboticist jobs, even though recycle doesn't benefit them as it should. But they're all workers, so they're not going to be a roboticist. And high bandwidth because it's not yet a problem. In exchange, I got harvesters, waterproof, and I think I had one trait point to mess with. So I took durable, a little bit of reduced upkeep, which for an individualist robot, this is both consumer goods and energy upkeep reduction. So that's nice. Whereas the high maintenance variant is higher of both. And I've got a bunch of different templates. One of the reasons I create so many, even dry ones, even though wet and dry both have full habitability, is to try and increase the game's chance of just randomly selecting to grow these, because I need a lot of these worker designs early on. But I also have some of the more generic specialist ones, the soldiers, which are actually enforcer optimized to be enforcers, and some utility as soldiers. If they were enforcers only, I'd give them decadent as a negative trait instead of high bandwidth, probably. But the game will produce a decent number of these without micromanaging like crazy. I won't be able to stop it from producing more than just a number of enforcer jobs. Bureaucrats and scientists, some of these will get produced for a while. And try and get them into those jobs as tech and uni jobs. But yeah. Excuse me. The basic philosophy on something like this, though, is to create a bunch of different sub-templates. They're good at different jobs. If you're doing Ascension as your mega core, Joe, then you might be grabbing mutation and creating different specialist versions that are optimized for different biological pops. They're optimized for different jobs, and then you can use auto modding and playing with default templates, as well as I think the clone vads will sometimes just select ones to grow that have no pops, and then they can grow naturally once there are a few assembled that way. But with mutation, you can choose negative traits that won't hurt a given job. There's biological ones that, or they're less relevant. If you're running a stratified economy, for instance, wasteful is not such a problem that adds to consumer goods upkeep. And positive traits that will benefit what a given subtype you're expecting to do. There is a automod trait there is a trait that can, for instance, act as any of the worker jobs, but it costs more points than ones that are specialized. So I could take the adaptive frames trait, but it costs 3 instead of 2, and that means I'm not going to be able to take as many other positive things, or I have to take worse negatives or more of them to balance it out. Mutation, by the way, with biological, if you're trying to get efficient use of pops, is the strongest because you can add negative traits, which you can't do with cloning or purity. Biological Ascension. I think it did suggest that you might want to try going Synth Ascension. Your Mega Core, if you take Synth Ascension, you can, either of the advanced authorities you get will allow each 100 civilians to benefit either research, unity, or alloys and consumer goods production on the planet they're on. So you pick one and you either stack civilians on research worlds, stack them on unity worlds, or stack them on manufacturing worlds really high. You'd also probably throw in a monument, which gives different things depending on your ethos. For instance, materialists get research edict. Materialists get research, authoritarians edict fund, pacifist extra minis. Governing ethics attraction is always, and the monument always adds a little base uni output to civilians. Although it increases the consumer goods upkeep somewhat. But if you're xenophile, which I think you are, Joe, then you get a pop upkeep reduction. Now that's not just on the civilians, that's like 100 civilians reduces upkeep of all pops in the world are on. And you can see if you just have enough civilians, you can reduce all pops upkeep to the 4, which pops can't have less than 90% upkeep reduction. Or, it can be more if there's things that increase upkeep, but you can't have less than 10% of the base upkeep. But that can reduce you can have pops that say you're running Utopian Abundance and they're costing 0.1 food and 0.1 consumer goods a month, which is just as good as if you were to run Utopian Abundance and produce zombie pops, except zombie pops have some drawbacks. I forget exactly what I think. They're less efficient at certain jobs. I don't remember if they're more efficient worker jobs or just blanket worse. Can still be a good mega core civ to run for a while because you get extra jobs to add to pop assembly. So you might still run it if your ethos don't forbid it. You just can't be an egalitarian while running it, which I haven't saved any of this, thankfully. But let's just create a test game here. Just so I can take a look at your ethos and stuff, Joe. Should be here. See, also take a look at what you're going on. Focus on YouTube. Just take a look at the other players. I mean, we're friends, and these are mine. See what he's got going on with ethos and stuff. Yeah, he was a xenophile, so this means his civilians reduce pop upkeep. Pacifist, the pretext remains authoritarian. I recommend authoritarian because I was trying to get him to do it helps with early expansion, but also a playstyle of spinning off vassals, because that reduces the amount of management you have to do yourself, especially a multiplayer game. It helps the game go faster because you're spending less time, like, can we do a slow speed or pause for me to figure something out? Or asking questions, which, if Joe's asking me questions, I may have to pause so I can think about answering and not mess up my own empire. And also there's mechanical benefits, like each vassal will have their own influence gain. You can put holdings on. If you get too many vassals, you can start giving some full independence and still federate with them or defense pacts, and so they'll still be your allies and help fight in your wars, but they won't count towards your vassal. I mean, there's a kind of soft vassal in this game in that when you have more than one, or certain civics 2 or 3, there's civics that increase the cap and also perks. So you might have a vassal limit of 3, or I think it's even possible to reach 4. But after that, each additional vassal, there's reduced loyalty for all vassals, and it's this kind of exponential effect. So you don't want more than a certain number. You might not want more than like 5 or 6 vassals tops if you have some of those civics and less without. Joe chose a aquatic variant that can do budding. It looks kind of like coral, so it makes sense. I don't remember why. I think he wanted, because aquatic can get egg laying, and that's an interesting trait. Yeah, and he took egg laying right off the bat. Intelligent sociologist, because that helps with Genesis guides. And and they can also do rooted. Budding can be great late game for keeping pop assembly up until Empire pop scaling, which I reduce the strength of, becomes overwhelming. Unusual temporal fluctuations. Wait, is he... Where... Oh, yeah, he's not doing that. Okay, I'm like, that's a high level anomaly. Probably good to ignore it for now. Expand the council. Yeah, that's a good early one. Personally, yep, I'm doing that, and then gonna run chart the stars, and I have a few chart the unknown. What is it called? Chart the unknown in general. I have a few more science ships out, so went right off the bat with map the stars with extra anomalies. Looks like Joe did the same. Oh, he's got some edict capacity left, so he could grab this or this once he needs a starbase cap. Yeah, this is a good set of things, especially because there's a one-time upfront cost to activating, so no reason to activate either you're not going to use yet. Oh, Joe, you got some crime here. You might want to do the anti-crime campaign. Yeah, that's the thing you can potentially do to increase the efficiency of enforcers. The way you would do it is, for instance, boom, lay off the enforcers for like a second. Decrease some priority, and then you can do this. Obviously I won't be saving this, not playing for him, I'm just showing, and now you set enforcers, and it shouldn't take as many to keep crime under control. They have increased upkeep. In fact, to get to where he was with crime, you could run, instead of 50, looks like 27, 28 enforcers. So each enforcer will cost more energy, but the pops you free up can work as extra technicians. Performance competition. I guess he has minor artifacts to spare. Does benefit his executives. Yeah, the megacores get that. Most civs they get a version that only benefits, I think, bureaucrats. I'm not sure I would do it though with so few of both. I did it on my Knight's Habitat in my sample game, but I had like 16 night jobs. I guess that's +2 income of minor artifacts though, and they're just gonna sit around with the Faculty of Arca Studies, and you can increase that even further with research labs or xenobiology labs, especially because it's on his homeworld, he gets archaeoengineers instead of biologists. Or actually, it's everywhere, but on his homeworld, they produce minor artifacts income. The Field Dynamics Center is... I'd probably do a normal research lab and a xenobiology, just to get as many of those archaeoengineers as possible. I think he grabbed this instead of this, and then he was already a little bit into it, but could be useful over here in Alpha Centauri. This is based in the UNE, so he actually Should have Mars, Jupiter. Yep, Mars, which is terraformable. But yeah, early game micro, one thing that can be done is to place a solar panel network trade hub. Maybe less useful in Megacore because they have a lot of trade production. Ooh, yeah, he's buying a lot of resources. Yeah, yeah, there's an argument for doing that actually, especially if you chose, say, the biological ship set and had more alloys to play with, since star-based components are still alloys. Let's exit back out to the menu. Can show that off. Also, because the balance is a little different with biological ship sets, but yeah, I could still do this in its alloys, even though, for instance, mining stations, star bases, they cost food and less alloys, so you have more alloys to play with for doing stuff like starbase upgrades, and then throwing trade ups. The upgrades themselves cost some food, but the balance is a little different. You want more farmers and fewer metallurgists, which honestly is pretty powerful once you start getting some things that upgrade farmer output. This trait apparently is bugged for all non-Gestalt empires. Gestalts are ones who get the extra jobs. This is supposed to, the first level homesteader, provide 200 jobs on the home planet, which is the capital because it's my planet. So this, yeah, taking this wasn't amazing because it was bugged. But that can be powerful with early game balance to do something like that. I'm doing city districts because with the lubrication terminals, you get extra pop assembly for each industrial district, or specialization rather. If this is double, I think it might increase the amount that these city districts increase pop growth. Assuming that I don't need to get the logistics growth and benefit from extra planet capacity the way a biological empire would. At least not until I get a biological secondary species, which I will someday, either through conquering empire or, more likely, placing this with this. I can't do it till 20 years into the game, and it costs some unity, but it lets me redo the council to get rid of the Minister of State, potentially, or even Defense, to replace him with other counselors. May have more immediate benefits. I actually don't have good counselors from my ethics, so I might just replace the Minister of State, keep the Minister of Defense. Well, this in the hair will probably work. Whatever job replaces is still the same leader, just a different responsibility. I'm also expanding the council because you notice all these leaders are authoritarian and like to get a pacifist or materialist on the council to make those factions happier when they form. I've not really built any set colony ships yet, probably because if I did the Genesis arcs, I could get Genesis Preserve, so there's that consideration, although it's going to be 16 more game years, so I probably do need to set a colony on Gasm 2 very soon. And it can be a mining world, but actually it's got a lot of resource deposits of every type. This is a very good world compared to like my single player game. Yeah, I might just throw a bunch of farms down on Gasm 2. 21 to... Well, that's because it's uncapped. Jeez, this is a very good homeworld. I rolled well. Size 21 too, which is, I think, the biggest you can get for a standard homeworld. It's not like a rock world. I had good luck, which it seemed to do in my Empire Gen lately. But yeah, even with the biological subsets, I've created a point defense only. Although, this is even cheaper upkeep because some of its food instead of alloys than the I think it was 0.1 and 0.008 for the biological variants. This is cheap to do this, and I can cross upgrade them to something like, well, not this, but probably a new design that's a Mauler. with a picket and, you know, these can only be combat animals. It's a little different. I guess these are more specialized. It's I'll actually need some with the swarm variant so I can actually add this, or more like with the lasers. But these are still useful for, say, dealing with void worms, which will still bother me once I have a biological species in my empire. So, boom. I've also been building some of these, which are some of the cheapest possible. They're an 8 food cost power projection, although I think I could do this. It's 170. Oh, that'd be 350 per 2. Yeah, this is the cheapest possible power projection. Just one. My reserve fleet contains 3 weavers of the foundation weavers. They're completely unarmed, as well as 6 maulers. About creating completely unarmed mauler, but it does save shipyard time to do it this way, I suppose, later with retrofits. That being said, boots is so sure I keep running out of it. Anyways, so I've shown off a few things. The subspecies, the auto modding. Every month, I think it'll say, let's see, my auto mod rate is, yep, 25 per colony per month. So I have 1 colony, it's all my homeworld. So every month, 25 of these pops will get turned into these. And that should help with my food shortage a little. I could, and I might add more variants, like duplicate, slightly different, like farmer or miner designs. They would have to have slightly different traits, but if I have a lot of very close related ones, then maybe the game is a little more likely to produce some actual miners instead of a lot of the politician design for instance, which might be a while till I actually get these assigned. Especially if they're not that much better than these luxurious and high bandwidth instead of custom made and bulky, because they'll have to actually be produced. So not custom made and bulky will eventually be a problem. And this, I'm not sure if bureaucrat jobs includes politician ones. It's possible. I should actually have this design build politician jobs instead. High bandwidth is a 2-point trace, even though the empire size is problematic eventually. Early aim, it's not so much, and it let me, for instance, give these guys mass-produced efficient processors and propaganda machines. So that's a little with ship design. Again, new design. Take a template. You could do custom, or you could do something like this. I'll just give you a pre-made one that's the game thinks is decent for a given role. But honestly, you're better learning to do custom and then adding components. You have a lot fewer component slots as a biological empire. I mean, biological shipset empire. You actually get some regen of armor. The reflector's still lower upkeep, so I might produce something like this eventually. Mandibles don't work so well right now because very often the maulers won't actually get close enough to use them. They ought to, but they don't. Also adds a lot to the ship cost in alloys, so might just be building some of these. Cheaper, not as effective as the mechanical ships, but cheaper. Alright, well, I wish you folks all the best. Take care of each other, be kind to yourselves, and may you always find a guiding star to lead you home. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something from it. Until next time, adieu.